feet, you will arrive at your destination.
Nothing fancy today food-wise. I've just got one of these little noodle bowls from Costco. I wasn't sure if I was going to find gas for my little stove. I did. So, I didn't plan anything big. We're at Braley Pond. Braley Pond is in western Augusta County in the George Washington National Forest, and it is said to be the most haunted camping area in Virginia and possibly in the entire U.S. I'm not sure how you would quantify that, but there's all kinds of stories from here about orbs and spirits hovering above the creek and voices of children in the forest at night, although at the moment there's a school here, so there's the voices of children in the forest in the daytime. There was a murder here. Christopher Kennedy, I think his name was, and this was, I don't have notes on this one. I'll put the date up on the screen. It was, I think, back in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003 sometime, but he was stabbed 13 times, and his body was dumped in the pond back there by two people. And it was said to be a gang-related incident. Subsequently, there was a paranormal investigator that came out a couple of times and had some interesting experiences. Right here, right, I think on this bridge and on this trail at night. She had something attach itself to her that was sort of crawling all over her, and whatever it was followed her home. And I'll do a voiceover because I don't have the notes on it.
Shay Willis is a paranormal researcher and empath. She visited Braley Pond on October 25th, 2003. In describing the location, she said that it was so heavy as to be almost palatable, and I knew immediately that this feeling was not my own. She had arrived at around 4:30 in the afternoon with a dozen or so young people who were interested in paranormal investigations. By the time they got to the dam, 2 of the group were sick and beginning to panic. Shay also began to feel sick. She says, I was surprised by my reaction to it. It was definitely the strangest reaction I've ever had, and I've gone on thousands of investigations in some really strange places. So the group decided to leave. Around 11:30 that night, Shay and her friend Chris returned. They experienced the same feeling of fear and dread that she had wrote about in her journal, that she sensed another presence behind the original that didn't feel human. When they reached the top of the dam, they heard something moving in the water. Chris grabbed Shay's arm and spun her around to see a glowing green orb in the trees. She described it as very large, but it blinked out before she could get a picture of it. It was then that they heard the sound of something the size of a full-grown person flailing in the water. They got the feeling that something was coming at them, and both of them ran. Chris was in the lead, and Shay witnessed him get knocked off of the bridge as if he'd been hit by something. She described him as sort of lifting into the air and flying to the side. She ran to the water to ask if he was okay, and he told her to keep going. It was then that she felt something on her back. She described it as psychic jelly and said that it felt as though it had tentacles. She ran to the truck, screaming. Chris tried to find what was on her back, but said that there was nothing there. She could still feel it crawling all over her. When she got in the truck, she was crying. Chris and Shay made additional trips to Braley Pond in November, and they had other strange experiences. And Shay made one trip by herself. She described that she felt that she was pulled to go there, and she ended up in the bathroom staring down into the toilet, not knowing how she had got there and having no memory of leaving the parking area. Shay had ongoing nightmares and trauma from these experiences. Several weeks later, she and her husband heard their 8-year-old son screaming in the living room, and then when they went in, he said that he had seen a man in the corner with holes in him and covered in blood and wet.
So anyway, that's that story. It's peaceful right now. It's a nice spot. Um, but I don't have any doubt that there's some validity to the stories. I mean, it seems pretty widespread. I think there have been numerous people that have come forward about weird experiences here. And there are people camping here. As I was coming in, there were tents set up, and all of the camping is dispersed camping. If you don't know what that means, it means go out and find yourself a camping site. There's not facilities, there's not hookups, there's not. You, you'd have a hard time parking any size RV in here. It's basically pull up in your car and set up a tent wherever you can. Some of them have fire pits, but that's about it. Camping's free here. That's nice. Apparently the pond's stocked with fish, so you can go fishing. There's a restroom over there. Although I haven't been inside of it, but I suspect it's more of an outhouse than anything else. I don't think there has to be a death for a place to be haunted. It's something that you always hear people talking about in paranormal stuff. Well, did anybody die there? I don't know that that makes any difference. But I do find that when I'm building my videos, I do look for the story. So I guess I'm guilty of that too, because I like to have the story. I like to tell the story. I like to remember the people, victims, I guess, or whatever. These kids are fun over there playing. That's what school ought to be right there. Take your kids out to the national forest and let them get bit by snakes and stung by bees. I had a lady hitting on me up at Sheets yesterday. Very unsuccessfully, obviously, because I'm way out of her league. But she said she wanted to invite me to her church, which was neat. I haven't been invited to somebody's church in a very long time. When I was in my 20s, people used to all the time want to invite me to their church. But it's been about that long since, and I told her she can invite me, but I wouldn't come. And I said I don't do dogma. She didn't understand what I meant, so I said I I have a really good relationship with all of that, with God or whatever you want, and I don't do all the ceremony production of the church and everything, and she said, "So you're saved?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." She said, "You know where you're going when you die?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I do, I do, you know, and I do, and I'm good with it." I, I've been through a lot of sort of a lot of my life. I was scared of death, and I've had some experiences that have changed my attitude about it. I'm no longer scared of death in any way. I'm actually rather looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fantastic adventure. I can't wait, um, but not today. Uh, I guess I can wait, but you know, I've got stuff left to do here, and I'm going to do it. It's interesting to me that I think a lot of religious people, particularly people of Abrahamic religions, because you don't find this so much in any kind of earth-based religion or Eastern, a little bit with Eastern religions, but, very focused on death and sort of what comes next. I guess that's often the purpose of religion, right? Dogs don't have religion because they don't have to deal with the knowledge of their own mortality and the possibility that their soul might exist beyond this current incarnation of experience. Christians, in particular, seem very obsessed with it in a way that I don't think is entirely healthy. I mean, if, you know, don't turn me off if you're a Christian. That's fine if it's working for you. I'm very happy that you found something that works for you and all. But it doesn't do to obsess about death and also as per a video I posted yesterday. I might add the longer version of that into this one. I don't know. Uh, it's really easy to let your mind get constrained when you know you focus on worrying a whole lot. You know, like the idea of being saved to me is just ridiculous. And I've been to some Christian funerals where they talked at length about, you know, sorry your loved one passed, but if you ever want to see him again, you better jump through all of these hoops that we've decided. You know, it's not for me. It's not how I view it. You know, I do not believe in original sin. I do not believe that we come into the world owing in any way or you know presumed in trouble unless we do these things that some book laid out that by the way was written by humans, was written by mortals, was like is fallible just in that because humans can't produce anything perfect, right? Like, isn't that part of, I don't know, probably take that part out of the video. But this is my church out here in the wilds. No phone service here. My location app is probably not pinging. Nobody knows where I am. And I like that in a way. I like being out. I like being off the grid, off the off the map a little bit, maybe. Um, that's where I find the most peace. You got everything here. You got the trees and the water, and you know, I don't see how you could be out in nature and reflect upon yourself and think in this beautiful natural environment where everything has its own rhythm and everything works in harmony with everything else and all. I alone have this cosmic karmic debt to, yeah, it's not for me. I love myself quite a lot. I couldn't even talk about myself like that. When I get home later, I'll see if I can turn all that gobbledygook into something coherent. I've mentioned before that if you're going to do the kind of going out and cooking, not that this is really cooking, but preparing food that I do, carrying little packets of condiments is easier than carrying a bottle of whatever. So today's condiment is sriracha, and I have packets. And the reason that I have packets is because my lovely partner is just magical. And she, I think these were part of like Christmas or something last year. I always try to have a couple on me when I did my little skiing. The other thing about Braley Pond, if you come here, there's a trash can right there. Like, right there. Right in the middle. Like, there's all these picnic tables, and there's a trash can. There's absolutely no excuse or justification. There wouldn't be anyway, but for leaving trash around. Nonetheless, before I leave, I'm going to go pick up some trash I saw because people are trifling. It's a pretty easy meal. There's absolutely no sexy way to eat noodles. Apparently, unless you're an animated dog.
I had been a little bit confused about this story reading the newspaper articles that I found online because while it seemed that everybody was in a gang, it also seemed that everybody was a Crip. But reading the court documents for the case cleared it up. What happened was that there were 4 defendants in the murder: Kenneth Jackson, Caden Stott, Kalani Noah, and Seth Tinsley. The night of the murder, they were all at Knott's apartment, and Jackson gave Noah and Tinsley the order to kill Christopher Kennedy. Apparently, at first, they were going to just beat him up. I think the issue was that they were concerned that he was going to inform on them to the police. But for whatever reason, they decided that just beating him up wasn't going to suffice.
In a quarter mile,
So Noah and Tinsley are the ones that did the stabbing, and then they took his shirt and his watch back to prove that they'd done what they were supposed to do. Anyway, that's all I have on that story. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it. Please like and subscribe. Like the channel, subscribe to the videos, or you know what to do. And I will see you in the next one.